morning, good morning. How are you? Those watching online this morning, we welcome you, and we're grateful that you're tuning in with us today. I want to personally celebrate Pastor Jim and Pam for their wedding anniversary, but also Pam's birthday. I had a chance to talk with Pastor Jim yesterday, and what an amazing couple. Our friendship goes way, way back, and I'm a little bit older than Pastor Jim, so it's easy for me to say how proud I am of both of them and this family, James and the kids, and how God has used them and continue to do so. So what a joy for Janet and I to be with you again. I was with you last month. I didn't plan it this way, but in a real way, today's message is kind of like a bookend to last month. As Patty was sharing her vision and what God had put in her heart, as Jason, I hear so many different common words and language this morning that help me because my focus, I sense the Lord just drawing me to a closer place and helping me to get my eyes where they need to be, my heart focus where it needs to be. Anybody else during this season of time? Yeah. So the title of this message this morning is Finding Your Way. Can you say it with me, everybody? Finding Your Way. I'm only going to be using one verse, but I'll be sharing the story to help make the point. But before I do, let me give a little bit of my backstory. This message is actually something spoken very dear to my heart, which was several years ago. Little did I know that I was just on the precipice. I would like to say the threshold, but it felt very much for a season of time like a precipice. I was about ready to be thrown off a cliff. I did not know that, but I sensed something in my spirit that some change was about to come. Anybody ever been in a season like that before? You don't know what's going on, but you know that there's something I've got to be paying attention to. Anybody? I got to be focused right now. My brother and I, during the time we were in New Hampshire, we were up in the White Mountains, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. But what you have today is out of an experience that was preparatory. I love the way that God prepares us in advance, where He grabs our attention in a moment if we'll give to that. And it was a moment just like that. I was going to bed one night. It was some conversation during the day that I overheard, and I began to journal. So today's message actually is something that was born out of several moments before the Lord as I was journaling what I sensed the Spirit of God began to speak to my own heart. How many have ever had any kind of an experience like that before? So a friend of mine many years ago said, you need to write it down to remember it. And I know that I've, like you, have so often said, I'll remember that, I'll remember it, I'll even repeat it like a dozen times to myself. How many know? And you walk away and you say, what was it I was to remember? I mean, I've done that over and I go, God, please help me. Don't let me do that again. So I've got next to my bed, I have a little journal that's there. I have one in my car, a little notebook. It's like I try to discipline myself, and I'll go, God, what in the world was it that I was supposed to remember? Something about what you're saying. Well, that tells me something about my, if you will, limitedness or my human nature. Today's message is about, again, this intentionalizing our life and focus upon Jesus Christ. I'm sure all of us at one time or another have had this kind of an experience. You wake up in the middle of the night, you're trying to find your way around, you can't see anything, and you stub your toe, you pull it, right? Because you can't see your way, right? Oh, don't bring that up, Azarab. Don't bring that up. How many of you have ever driven in the fog before? So I remember driving in this coast. I don't remember it like it used to when I was younger, but it used to get really dense fog right in this area here. It's not like it used to be. Am I right? The weather patterns kind of changed a little bit. And I remember hugging the tail end of somebody in front of me so I could see their tail lights, trusting that they weren't going to run into anything. I was so into just following, just slowly, keeping right on their tails so I don't get lost, right? If ever there was a moment in our time and our season of life that we're living in through this COVID season about finding our way, it's now. I mean, there are so many voices, so many blogs, so many words and voices, prophetically and otherwise, giving us and trying to draw our attention, giving us language and understanding about what is this season that we're all in. Let me just simplify it one thing. When things begin to get dark, when things begin to not be as clear as they are, draw near to Jesus. But I know in this season, it's like draw near to man. Draw near to that voice. Draw near to this news media. Draw near. And all of this is going to lead us somewhere other than where Jesus is leading us. I can tell you that as I'm standing here. Listen to the confusion that's going on. Anybody confusion this season? Anybody been filled at one moment or another with a little bit of doubt or even fear? Can I ask you this? Where does that come from? Is that from our Jesus? Jason started it with the love story. Oh my goodness, I'm reading a book right now that's bringing me through Genesis on God's love story, showing me in the Hebrew and the Greek, knitting together the text of God's incredible heart. I told Jan the other night, I'm overwhelmed at just how much religion I've gotten inside of me, and I've missed the very person, the lover of my soul. In this season, I believe this lover of our soul is drawing us closer and closer to Him, so that none be lost in this moment, that none would be filled with fear in this moment, none would be hopeless in this moment. We ought to be a people of incredible strength and faith. We ought to be stable and secure. So like Patty just said about being the light, so that we truly can be that light set up on a hill that leads away in dark times like the one we're walking in. Finding your way. Here's our text today. When Jesus spoke again to the people, He's there in the middle now of the festival of the tabernacle, or Sukkot, which is the festival of booths. This was one of 3 different celebrations that God implemented where the people of Israel would come to the temple and worship. They were gathered there, so they were there by the thousands. This would go on. The Sukkot was an 8-day celebration. And 8 days they would gather. They would come in the morning, they would break in the afternoon, and they would have an incredible time of celebration each evening. This text that I'm reading now is on the very last evening of Sukkot, of the festival of booths. And Jesus now stands in this place and He says, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Have the light of life. This is God's word. Someone say amen. First of all, I'm going to break down my message very quickly. We're looking first of all to the prophetic backdrop. Can you say with me, prophetic backdrop? Then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the setting. I've given you a little bit, but the setting. Can you say it? The setting. And then thirdly, the teaching. Teaching. Prophetic backdrop, the setting, and the teaching. Jesus stands in this moment and He says, I am, somebody help me, the light of the world. This is the second time that Jesus uses one of 7 different times in the Gospel of John what's known as the I am statements. What's the significance of this? You might remember when Moses was being sent by God to Pharaoh. How many remember the story? Set my people free. And Moses asked in his own nervousness, he says, who shall I say has sent me? Some of us in this room are scholarly. You understand the importance of this. And God responds to Moses. He says, tell them I am sent you. Now, there's too much of a teaching in this, but the sum totality of the creator of the universe is wrapped up in this Hebraic language, I am. And Jesus, in fact, is saying, I am the one, I am the bread that was there, I am the water, and I am the light. I am the provision. I am your power. I am that I am that I am. And this is the second time that Jesus prophetically stands in this temple courtyard, this Feast of Tabernacle. It's in the middle, and it's right here at the end where He stands. Now, there's a lot of a teaching in there, and I would trust you get a little bit of the taste of it, and go back sometime today and this week and read through chapter 7 and chapter 8, and you'll get more of an understanding of the context of what's taking place here. This place was the celebration in this moment of a remembrance of what God had already done and has always been doing, but they're hearkening back to their forefathers. In this feast, there is a reminder as they celebrate it. There's a reminder of the manna because Jesus said, I am the bread of life. It's the bread that came down from heaven in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of nothing. God brings provision. How many remember the story? I am the bread of life, the bread that came from heaven. I am that provision that Jesus is speaking. Jesus is hearkening back as well, the living water. Earlier on in chapter 8, we see where He talks about living water that flowed in the middle of a desert. You remember when Moses spoke to the rock, he was supposed to speak. He struck the rock and then spoke, but struck. He's speaking to this rock, and out of nothing comes this fresh, incredible, sweet-tasting water, seemingly out of nowhere. What's the picture behind that? Say it with me, will you? God can do anything. Say it to yourself. God can do anything. How many really believe that? Somebody's got to get in faith right now. You got to lay some hands on yourself and say, God can do anything. Come on, Rob, spit up. Get this one right. Even in the middle of a global pandemic, how many believe it? God can do anything. And I'm aware that there are people tremendously suffering in the middle of this. Good friend of mine's mother-in-law just passed away from COVID on Friday. I got an early text from a brother, a good friend of mine in Bakersfield, a pastor, praying for them. I am well aware of people who have lost their jobs. I'm well aware of the financial despair that's taken place, people who have not been able to pay their rent. I'm well aware. And I don't know how God is going to work through all of those circumstances, but one thing is true. God can do anything. And what's most important for all of us is how are we living in that, irrespective of whatever earthly pleasures there may be, that I am going to remain close to Him as He is close to me. And my provider, even though it doesn't seem like He could provide or where is it going to come from, my God is able to do anything, even in the midst of a pandemic. I am the manna, I am the water, and now here He is in this last minute, the last moments of the celebration of Sukkot. He stands in the middle of a courtyard. He says, I am the light of the world. What's He referring to? Every Jewish hearer would have understood this. They would have understood that the great I Am was the pillar of fire at night to keep them warm, but also to guide them in their desert journey. Remember this, 40 years wandering? Also the cloud by day to keep the sun sheltering them, if you will, from the heat of the day. He's now speaking when He says, I am. There wasn't a Jewish hearer there that wouldn't have recognized something to tie it into this wilderness experience of the incredible, almighty presence of the living God. That's a little bit of the prophetic backdrop. This is now the setting. Here it is. He's standing in what's known as the court of the Gentiles. It's on the eastern side. Some of you have study Bibles. You look to the back and you'll see these different images that have been drawn out, the illustrations of what the temple courtyard would have been. It's up on a hill. Janet and I have been able to visit Jerusalem, so I have some spatial understanding and context, although we couldn't get to the Temple Mount. But this large area would have been a courtyard, much bigger than what we're looking at right here. There would have been colonnades, large pillars that would have surrounded all of it. It was called the court of the Gentiles or the court of women. And around these colonnades, it also would have been the treasury where the offerings, the temple tax, would have been given. And it would have been like a big horn, a cornucopia, if you will, that was turned upside down. It had a large basin in it round, and as it came, it was circular, and it would come to a narrow point like this, large and cylindrical like this. Somebody help me here. I've only had one cup of coffee this morning. It's not helping me. Cylindrical, okay? And they would have come and they would have put the temple tax in there to help pay for all of the services, and there's enough said there. And in the center of this, listen to this, I did some research on it. These candelabras that they were lighting, they were 7 different candles. Some Jewish scholars believe that in the middle of this huge portico, this huge area, and there was stadium seating that was there, hundreds and hundreds of people could have sat on these hewn out sandstone and limestone steps there in this court, right? 2 candelabras would have been placed in the middle of them, and they would have been almost 75 feet tall. The cups that held the oil that burned were huge, and the priests would have to climb with ladders to fill them each night for the celebration. It's in this moment when Jesus steps into this courtyard right there, before these lamps were lit, and He, with a loud voice, my text tells me, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never stumble, never lose their way in darkness. Now let me tell you prophetically in this setting what would have been happening in this moment. Just before these lamps were lit, because they all know this is something like an unbelievable display. When they would light these candelabras, and you can imagine because there was no roof, just like today outside, there is no roof. And from around the Judean hillsides, when they lit them, they were like two torches, like searchlights that would be blasting up into the sky. Now remember this now, because the Jewish tradition was oral. They didn't all walk around as fortunate as we are with our Bibles. And they would have gone from generation to generation, just like Deuteronomy 6. As you're walking, as you're sleeping, as you're eating, tell them these things. So they would have been hearing the stories from father to son, to their sons, to their sons, to their daughters. You see, oral, they would have been telling these stories. And in this moment, from around this incredible sight, would have been this display, and it represented God's what? Presence. It's a hearkening back. Remember when great-grandpa, when he was with us before he passed, when he told us the story that his father told, Remember when he talked about it's all the way back when they came through the desert? There's a small little remnant that even made it out, but the stories of God's almighty presence, the light that lit the way, and Jesus stands in this moment. I am the light of the world. Where are your eyes today? What fog might you be driving in? What stumbling places of darkness? Well, today Jesus is here to shine the way, to set the way, to give us understanding. We should not be a people who have lost our senses. We should not be a people who are confused about these days. If anything, we should be drawing closer. I was so glad to hear Pastor Patty talk about this reviving of people drawing near to God. When you talk about prayer, that's what's going on here. We know that there is no other answer. Jesus be the Lord. Jesus come and lead us. Jesus be the one. Light our way in this moment, we pray. This would be a moment like no other moment. I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never, listen to this, never walk in darkness. Does it say sometimes walk in darkness? Does it say, well, maybe on a bad day you may walk in darkness? May it mean like, oh, wait a minute, the guy didn't fix his taillights, so you're going to be driving in darkness? You guys got it? No, he said, you will never. I am laying my life down in belief for this. Never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. If ever there was a moment in my history, in our history, that we need this light to be shining brightly in this darkness, someone say it, it's now. It's now. And by the way, last little point before I turn the corner. This is the moment, by the way, the fulfillment of Isaiah 9:2. Let me quote it for us. The Jews, our brothers and sisters, would have known this. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. Lord Jesus, come. Lord Jesus, come. Lord Jesus, come. Lead us, we, your people. Someone please say yes and amen to that. Not because I'm asking you to, because you need it, I need it. So finally, let's turn the corner. Here's the message. You ready? Somebody's going to say, uh-oh, where are we going now? Really, it's just, remember I said this is something very personal to me. This is something Jesus spoke to my heart. Little did I know how much I needed it and what darkness I would have been walking through just days and weeks that were ahead of me. I love the preparatory work of the Spirit. Draw near to Him, and He draws near to us. It's not that He's distant from us, but there is this proximity that takes place in the frailty of my life, your life, that there's things that can just get in there that clogs up, and there's like like something that just, like a crustiness and like something that keeps me distant from, not that He is distant from me, but I'm not as sensitive to. If ever there was a moment, this is a moment where there's a recalibration, a resensitizing of His people's hearts. So the first thing, I just break it down real quickly, that for me at least, these are the words that were being spoken in my heart. They're just simple. Follow me. Trust me. Keep your eyes on me. Follow me. Trust me. Keep your eyes on me. Can you repeat them to yourself with me right now? Just audible. Ready? Follow me. Trust me. Keep your eyes on me. Last time I was here, I brought a message, keeping our eyes on Jesus. I don't think I'm ever going to get tired of preaching that message. Keep your eyes on Jesus. So follow me. He who follows me, listen to what Jesus said, will never walk in darkness. That word follow has a lot of meaning to it. And I think we can immediately say, well, if I asked you to follow me and I started walking and you would follow me, you know, in the military, when you're marching, it's cadence, right? To your left, your left, your left, right, left, right? Anybody former military? I was, you know. So, and you know, if you're out of step, things go wrong real quick, right? So that follow is very much like that. It's how to keep in pacing and in step. It's like when a teacher, I remember as a kid, Rob, sit still. It's following, if you will, the direction of a leader, an elder in your life. It's a mom and a dad talking to children, say, don't do as I have done, but do as I say. In other words, I've learned some tough lessons here. I want to give you a little bit of wisdom. I want to give you a little bit of life. I want to give you. Or someone goes to a doctor and the doctor says, here, let me help you. If you'll do these things, you'll get healthier. And that's following, if you will, the instruction. He who will follow me, he who will obey, he will take my words, he who will trust in me in this, if you will never walk in darkness. The light, as we know, is to illuminate the darkness. And you've all done this before. No matter the size of the light, no matter how deep the darkness, it's amazing. You could have the smallest of smallest little flashlights and how it illuminates the darkness. The light is to illuminate the way. It's to cast away the darkness that obscures, that obstructs, to give us the way. Here's the important thing, my illustration as I started about the car in the fog. If I didn't follow closely those taillights, who knows where I would have went? Because it was so dense in the fog. Somebody say, yeah, that's right, right? I am the light of the world. Secondly, Jesus said, trust me. Someone say, trust me. I have come, Living Bible says, as a light to shine in the dark world, so that all who put their trust in me will no longer walk in darkness. That word to trust, is a word that means to throw oneself completely, without their own strength, their own ability, into the arms or the hands of another. Now, you don't do this blindly. Maybe some of you have done this before in a team-building exercise where you're standing like on a log or a table or a bench, and you've got your teammates next to you with their arms out, and you're just supposed to just kind of go backwards and trust them to catch you. Anybody ever done that before? Maybe you're like me. I'm going, I don't care how long I've known you, but there's been enough of you guys who's going to let me fall, right? But then you got to get over that fear, and what do? You lean back and trust. Now, it sounds easier than it really is. Let's just be honest. But Jesus said, if you'll lay your life and trust me in this way, you're never going to wander in the dark. Where are you today? Where are we? Is there that kind of trust? Partial trust? Temporary trust? Occasional trust? Situational trust? It's not a point of finger. It's just a reality in the frailty of my own life. And here God was speaking to me about some things that were so important. Little did I know I was going to be coming into a season in so many different ways that I'd never experienced before where this would be true. It reminds me of something here. Solomon wrote in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't lean to your own understanding, but in all your ways, acknowledge Him and He'll what? Shine the light in the darkness to show the way. That word there in the Hebrew for trust in the Lord and that leaning is this exact same thing that Jesus is saying. Even when I seem to be limping, not literally physically, but maybe emotionally, maybe spiritually, maybe situationally, there's just things where I've just been, it's like, well, you're doing everything you can to keep yourself propped up. Jesus says, I'm the one that will carry you. Can you lean all of that, bring that all, cast all your cares upon me. Cast everything of your life and being upon me. If ever there was a moment in the season, the life we're living in, it's now. You can trust Him. God is not human that He should lie, not a human being that He should change His mind. Does He speak and then not act? Does He promise and not fulfill? Numbers 23:19 says. And lastly, keep your eyes on me. Can you say it with me? Keep your eyes on me. Micah 7:7, New Living Translation. As for me, I look to the Lord for his help. I wait confidently for God to save me, and my God will certainly hear me. Sometimes in life we can become very disoriented. Sometimes we try to figure out which end is up. We can become at times very anxious, trying to find our way, but in the midst of that, maybe like me, you have gotten off track. We can begin to question. God couldn't possibly be in the middle of this. God would never. Yeah, I've had those thoughts. If he were really a part of this, certainly my life would have ended up different. If he was really a part of all of this, things would be, you fill in the blank. But I found too, and you keep focusing on the problems, they become ultimately the thing that has my attention. And all I can see is what isn't rather than what is. So many voices spoken from the songs, our worship today, to Jason opening today, to the prayers that were prayed by Patty and James as he was giving us his testimony. If you heard the theme, it was this calling of focus to the one who really is. The one who can do anything. So where are your eyes today? Where are your eyes? What are they focused on? And I close with this. I said earlier that this spoke very clearly to my heart. Several years ago, my brother lived in New Hampshire. I was working back east, living in New Hampshire. And I've loved the outdoor my whole life. I really meet God. It's like if I'm in nature, I'm in the water, surfing, I'm in the mountains, whatever. But getting connected with a brother I didn't grow up with. We didn't know each other growing up, so it's kind of cool. He's a little older than I am, so I was the oldest, and so to have a big brother, I was about ready to give him all the problems because I was tired of being the big brother. If any firstborns in the room, you know what I'm talking about, right? So he and I and my niece and nephew, we went up on a hike in the White Mountains, and we came to a place called Crag Camp, and we spent 2 nights, 3 days up in the middle of the mountains. We were just below Mount Washington, what they call the Presidentials. And although the elevation isn't what we would know here, like the Sierras and such, but the tallest mountain back there is Mount Washington. It's about just under 6,300 feet, which you go, well, the Santa Ynez Mountains are basically 61. What's that? But where they're positioned, they are some of the most dangerous mountains that there are in the United States. Because of this, no matter what time of year it is, in the middle of winter, in the middle of summer, you can experience winter. The weather patterns can change so dramatically, so there's a lot of caution. So in fact, when you come out of the alpine area, when you're hiking up on a normal trail that you would imagine, all of a sudden you break through the little the cone pines and some other things, and the next thing you find yourself, you're in what I like to call frag fields or slag fields. They're just nothing but granite, boulders, and rocks that are huge. And there's a big sign before you break through the alpine part, before you hike now up above, and there's their huge danger signs, and there's all of these words about caution if you're not prepared, if you do not have the proper clothing, no matter what time of year, because every year, if now you're going to pay attention, you'll hear it, every year people die in these mountains. Right in the middle of summer because they're ill-prepared or something happened. But here's this large sign. You're taking basically your life into your own hands once you go here. Now, me, I just don't, no problem, I'm just going to go past, right? So here we are, we're going up, and I don't know if the picture, if anybody can see, I know online you'll be able to, we're outdoor. But the weather changed dramatically overnight, and one of the pictures that you'll see, I'm sitting there, my brother took this picture, you couldn't barely see your hand in front of you. It went from almost zero visibility to no more than 10, 15 feet. It was just crazy how fast it just moved in. Now, I'm now being educated. There are these rock markers called cairns. And you watch the cairns because of, like I said, all of the rock, there isn't a pathway to follow. You follow the cairns wherever they're going. Now, here's the picture, and this is where God began to speak to me. Later that evening, we were in this little shed. It's called Crag Camp, and everybody just kind of sleeps on the floor, and you have your meals there and everything. And I overheard, because there was a hiking guide that had a group of people, and they were huddled in the corner, and I'm kind of a nosy guy. You know, I just kind of leaned over because I'm hearing this professional, so to speak, give instruction to the people he was leading. And that day, he chose to use that as a teaching lesson for them. It was an object lesson. Why? Because of the change that happened so quickly. And this is what he said to them about the Karens and how they're placed and why you respect them and you don't touch them, etc. All they are is stacks of stones. They normally put a quartz stone on the top so it makes a little bit of a difference. You're walking. Listen to what he said. This is what caught my ear. And I want you to hear these words from a professional. He said to the group that he was leading, be very careful. If you find yourself 30 paces and you do not see a Karen, you just might be a few feet from being lost. And that's what got my ear. And all of what I've been sharing today, yes, contextualizing it in the season we're in, God said, pay attention. And then he says, if you find yourself 30 paces and you do not see a Karen, stop, because you just might be a few feet away from being lost. Now, there's another story to all that, how true that can be, even though on a clear day it's crazy. I wonder where we are today in this last point of keeping our eyes on Him. You find yourself more than 30 paces away. You might just be a few feet away from being lost. That night as I sat, I asked the Lord, what are you saying? I had a little candle I was burning. I had my journal and my sleeping bag. And from that, not that I created a message in that moment, because more importantly than me sharing the message that God gave to me, I share it with you now. I began to pin some of these words that I brought today. What are you speaking to my heart, Lord? I had no idea what was just around the corner in my life and how important it would be for me to keep my eyes and my trust, my faith and my hope. And when Jesus spoke, I am the light of the world. You'll never stumble in darkness. If ever there was a moment for us to keep our eyes, our focus, our life, our hope, our trust in Him, it's now. Would you stand with me before I close? Where are you today? Some of you may be distant. Some of you said, man, I lost the trail somewhere. It's not too late. He's shining the light right now. Draw near to Him, for He draws near to you. Maybe there's some confession needs to take place. You've listened to so many different voices. You've become so confused in the hour that we're in. And you don't know which end is up. Draw near to Him and say, Jesus, I don't know what is true and what isn't true, but You are the only one that truly is the true one. Lord, help Your people. I bless today in the name of Jesus. Peace, clarity, hope, trust, faith, renewal. Lord, whatever has gotten in the way, remove it. Whatever has distracted, whatever has been keeping Your people from their eyes being on You, their hope and their trust in You, remove that, I pray. I bless You with open ears to hear, with fresh eyes of the Spirit to see. And whatever's been the thing that's been maybe clogging things up right now, be released in the name of Jesus. I bless You in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. God bless you. Thanks for having me today.